Starting. All right, so welcome to our first of our two 1 hour sessions about fulfillment policy cleanup. Today is going to be an overview on how the policies that affect our frontline interactions with our patrons get built within the various layers and structures of Alma. So I'm just going to dive right in. For some folks, this may be very much a, review. Maybe it's a refresher, or maybe like me, a few years ago, you're like, I don't understand. Alma is nuts. So the f- I like to kind of think of how the final output of like this book checks out to this person, as two different sides of Alma configuration. There's the physical, and then there is the more data-based rule side of it. The physical side of it is that your fulfillment units come down from institution level to library level into your fulfillment units, and then each of those fulfillment units include a physical location that you've created in the system. Um, Now, we also, I think we all know that, in fact, these physical constructions can be completely different from um, what is actually going on in the real world. Um, so you may have multiple libraries set up that you don't use because they were created to manage non-circulating collections at some point, or somebody created them for a certain user group and didn't understand how these layers of Alma work together. I have visited, I think, about a third of the libraries now, and from looking at your physical spaces and then looking at the way um, the physical structure is represented in Alma, I can say with relative confidence that almost everybody has too much complication in the system. And it would behoove us all to take a look at these and see where you can consolidate, streamline, eliminate redundancies, and then get rid of stuff that's not being used. Um, so we have that side. And then on the other side, which some people view as a continuation of that physical structure, we have the fulfillment unit rules that are made up of the fulfillment policies that are built based on terms of use. Uh, and so these two things flow into each other to be processed into whatever that circulation policy is in practice. A lot of people end up with problems because, and this is kind of the next part, is because of these reasons. There's too much complexity, or things are in conflict with each other. Something that I've seen and talked to other folks about outside of our consortium as well is that when migration into Alma happened, oftentimes the policies and structures were mapped from the previous ILS kind of straight across with no consideration for how Alma works differently than Aleph or something homegrown. Um, and because migration often happens when we don't yet know the eccentricities of the system, a lot of people doing those migrations don't have the expertise or the support to really um, take the old structure and make it optimized for Alma. Another thing that I see in a lot of systems are that, and this is directly the pandemic, like almost 90% of the time, ad hoc policies and rules were created to check out equipment really quickly or to change checkout policies in the midst of closures and things like that. Um, Sometimes things get created because suddenly there's a new item policy that gets thrown onto materials, and it's now not triggering the way it should be. And so, and in the moment, we want to serve our students. We want to get those items checked out. You may not want to give permissions to your circulation staff to override due dates. And so new rules and policies and structures get created that just end up kind of gumming up the works. Um, so if you have a messy fulfillment environment, you've probably experienced some of these things. For user experience, so a student comes up, they try and check something out, and it's not checking out to them, or it's checking out for the wrong amount of time. You're constantly having to add item policies to new things that you're cataloging, even though they're going into your main collection. Um, you might hear from your staff that they're having to do manual changes during circulation transactions, or you have workarounds for cataloging something in a place that it really shouldn't go, but this makes it trigger the right policy. And then if you're new to your library, and we have had, like a fair amount of turnover in the last couple of years since migration, you may see locations or item policies that you don't recognize, that are not attached to active items. And you're just like, can I delete them? Um, so, um, I'm gonna kind of go through all of these areas, but these are the three main locations where these relevant configurations live. Most of them are in configuration, fulfillment, and physical fulfillment. I meant to get a note on here about what roles you need in Alma in order to access these. Um, Fulfillment administration is probably one that works, but there could be other like ones like Circ desk administrator. I don't know. So I was gonna check that, but um uh also patron configurations is one to check. And then this is like my favorite secret tool, which is not a secret at all, but I didn't know about it for a long time, and that is the fulfillment configuration utility, which gives you the ability to see what policies are triggered on an item with a certain user uh, lending or borrowing it. Um, the new um, item and holding search pages also have the ability to kind of look and see which policies and rules apply to an item. But since that's a newer functionality, not everyone may be familiar with it. So I'll go ahead and open up. I'm gonna open up Big Bend. I would open up a sandbox, but it's just too bare bones to really show you what, it can look like. Um, and unfortunately, Amanda, I don't think is here today. I'm not watching participation, but she does know that I was going to use this. So configuration, fulfillment, and then here's physical fulfillment. So we're going to start with item policy, and you can see that there are 33, which is probably pretty typical for most of you. And you can also see that 30 of these were created during implementation in 2016. I find this deeply fascinating because Ex Libris documentation says item policies should be used as like the extreme exception to every other layer of policy and rule. So then why they created 30 some by default in pretty much everybody's environments when y'all migrated, I don't understand. Um, so this is typical. Don't be concerned. Uh, but it doesn't necessarily need to exist like this. Another area that it's good to look at is the terms of use and policies. So this one can be a little confusing because the default is to see all of the different types of terms of use. And so a lot of times when I'm trying to really assess, I will use this drop down, and I focus on loan more often than not. Not too many people are using full resource sharing unit. I don't think anyone's using booking, maybe. And then request is used pretty minimally. So most of your policies, your terms of use are going to be in loan. And apologies, I'm going to say policy instead of term of use, or I'm going to say rule instead of policy because it's so fun. Um, so as you can see, we have quite a bit of redundancy in here. Uh, 2 28-day, we have 2 21-day, two different 1 week media. Um, these kinds of duplications, I think, are more a symptom of the ad hoc creation of terms of use, but also the mapping from the old system. Um, the ability to control the different policies within uh, these terms of use and then apply these terms of use uh, using other characteristics within the fulfillment unit rules is far more tweaky, I guess. Like there, you can set a lot better control than now in Alma than you could in previous systems. So I see a lot of times where um, the term of use is used repeatedly for fulfillment rules in a fulfillment unit, and it it really doesn't need, like, it's the same thing over and over again, and those can all be combined. So looking at your terms of use and finding out which ones really are identical, that perhaps someone didn't understand that one already existed. Like for example, the Japanese agriculture training program end of term is probably actually the same as the student end of term. But there was a like conception that because it was going to apply to a different user group, there needed to be a different term of use. But in fact, there does not. Um, like reference desk end of term is probably identical to student end of term. Um, so because all of their end of term stuff, I'm pretty sure has replacement fees because it's their equipment. Whereas the 28-day loan has um, a basic flat lost fine because that's their main collection. Um, so this is a lot of different loan policies, and like they're probably not even using this 30-day loan anymore. Um, and this is the kind of um, thing where you might come in and look and say, we don't do 30-day loans anymore. So where is this attached? And in that case, you are able to use the menu button and show where this term of use is getting applied for fulfillment rules. So it is getting used in three different fulfillment units, one for uh, ILL, but then also ILL in media. And then there's this, it is some reason in general as well. And it probably doesn't need to be. Um, and there's a completely different way that we can set up ILL, so that you don't have to have an ILL policy in every single fulfillment unit. Um, One of the, we might look and see that student 7-day equipment is in the limited fulfillment unit, which I'm not even sure if we have active items in the locations covered by this fulfillment unit anymore, because that was a temporary emergency decision made at the beginning of the pandemic, and now all of that equipment is in different fulfillment units. Um, but this is something that I can't come in and say, yeah, let's get rid of all of these, because I don't know your policies. I don't know um, your physical locations or processes in your library necessarily. I happen to know Big Ben's pretty well. So I'm able to kind of have some ideas about what's going on in here. But um, for the most part, this is something that your circulation manager, perhaps even your librarians, as far as setting policy, need to, take a look at. And if you're seeing things you don't recognize that aren't in use, this is a great place to kind of clean out old stuff. You cannot delete something if it's attached to a fulfillment unit rule. So there's really no danger if you hit delete. It's going to say, nope, attached to a fulfillment unit rule and cannot be deleted. So, you're fine. So that's terms of use. Um, and then advanced policy configuration is another one. And this again looks very intimidating until you use the policy type drop down. So these are the little elements that make up a term of use. So some of them are going to apply only to a booking term of use. Some are going to apply to request term of use. Um, like card renewal fee is going to apply to user registration term of use. Due date is probably the one that you're most familiar with thinking about. And we can see here that we have created um, several different little elements in policy to go into term of use. So they have 12-hour, 24-hour, 8-hour, 7-day, 30-day, 28-day, and then here's like a 1 week loan and here's a 7-day loan. That's, like that's the same thing. 24-hour and 1-day loan, technically different. It gets applied slightly weirdly when it comes to due dates. Um, but like there's two, I don't know if end of year is actually different from end of term. Um, like there's all kinds of redundancy here. Now again, you can't delete these unless they are not attached to a term of use, but you can, just like with terms of use, see which fulfillment unit rule they apply to. Now we're one lower layer lower, so we can see what term of use these apply to. So 24-hour rule, uh, and it goes to the 24-hour loan term of use, but a 1-day loan goes to all of these. So in my mind, I would take that 24-hour loan and see what is different. Where is it getting applied that the 1 day isn't, and just use the 1 day. Okay, we have a question in the chat. So Bellingham Tech have 3 2-week loan TOUs. It's for material in the general collection with a 14-day grace period before getting lost. The no fine is for materials in reserve that also have a 14-day grace period. And the 2-week loan with fine is for items in reserve with no grace period. Is it possible to combine TOUs that have the same grace period but from different fulfillment units? Yes. Different locations cannot be assigned to multiple fulfillment units, but a fulfillment unit rule can grab any TOU. So if, like you've got the 2 that have no fine and a 14-day grace period, those could be the same TOU and be used by fulfillment unit rules in both the general collection and the other one, reserve collection, I think. Now, when it comes to like grace periods and lost triggers, um, you can always review the overdue and lost loan profiles to see what is getting triggered on which overdue notification type. Um, this is probably a day 2, like digging into someone specifically. We have actually at Big Ben, I hate how these, I'm like, there is no description. Um, there we go. Trying to get the full name in here. So you can see they have created um different overdue notification type 2s, which um honestly don't need to be different. So they're send notification, 14 days, and then they have basically all of these user groups. And then if we look at the STEM Center, it's the only, well, and this one's for the STEM library. And that's my fault because I set it up, but we could have used the exact same one. We don't need to limit it by the library because a 14-day already exists. And then this trio one is, again, it's limited to this library. But here's the thing, you don't have to limit to a library. So then the 14-day notice applies to all the things. And you don't have to choose a user group, and then it would apply to every single user group. So if anyone has something checked out for 14 days on a policy that triggers this overdue and lost loan profile, so probably everything but ILL, and maybe ILL too, because 14 days overdue is 14 days overdue. Um, it would just automatically trigger. And instead, we've got 4 different ones. Um, so uh yeah, this isn't, I mean, like, it looks super organized, but it is also very redundant. Um, so that's something to think about, is redundancy when you look at these. And it can be brain melting. Like, no question there. I mean, you look at these and you're like, well, what's the difference? And we saw it was literally only this library selection. But library selection is not required. You could make a 14-day notice for every single library that you operate. And most of you only have one. So, not a big deal. Um, Okay, so that's now that was overdue and lost. We've looked at advanced policy configuration, item policy, terms of use. And now if we look at fulfillment units, we kind of see where these things come together. So we'll pop into equipment and we can see that on the fulfillment unit level, the on-shelf request policy can be set. So you don't need to create a bunch of TOUs about requesting if you've got your fulfillment unit locations organized in a way where requestable materials are together, non-requestable materials are not together, or are also together. Yeah, I hope you know what I was saying. Um, so now we have all these different locations, so descriptive. Um, and in a perfect world, what you would see here would be um, all of the shelf locations that check out with really similar policies. So this would not be end of term and short-term loans together because those are two wildly different terms of use. And if we look, we've got a lot of different loan rules on here because you've got wildly different terms of use for the items in the same fulfillment unit. Now, the way that Alma is going to read an item is it's going to look for an item policy. And if that item policy has a rule that calls it out specifically, that will be the first thing that it goes to. Then it's going to look at its fulfillment units rules, and it's going to read from the top down. So all of these different locations, from 24-hour to 7-day to 8-hour to DSS, the first rule that that the system's gonna look at as is it applying to this item is end of quarter. And end of quarter applies to trio, faculty, staff, and student with an item policy of equipment, end of quarter equipment, and STEM in the location of all of these locations. And then it's going to apply student end of term. So if the user is beta, that's a user group I know that's not in this list. It's going to say, okay, nope, that doesn't trigger. So it's going to go to faculty and it's going to say, nope, not faculty. And then it's going to go to 24-hour student and it's going to say, nope, not in there. And then it's going to say 8-hour student and user group, no beta user group there. So it's going to go to this one. Still no user group of beta. Going to go to this one. Nope. And then no loan. All we have is item policy in reserve. Well, maybe that item policy isn't reserve. So now it's going to go to this. And we've got a user group and nope, still no beta. And then 1 week media. Nope. So then it's going to default to not loanable because that should be the default terms of use, which we can look at, not for loan. So it's really deceptively easy for a tiny element of information between either the item, the location, or the user trying to check it out to have it not trigger on one of your rules if you don't have simple rules set up. It's also quite easy because of item policies versus location to get something triggering like on the wrong level. Uh, so when you have consistent issues with like, well, this location is just not checking out for the right amount of time, it's worth taking a look at the rules list and the order that it is in, and the uh, parameters that are set. Okay, so then the other one that you'll want to take a look at, so we've covered kind of the main ones that I think of in physical fulfillment, but patron configuration user groups is another one. This is a lot. Um, and new Alma functionality allows you to create statistical categories for users, which we can work on getting up and running. Nobody's patron load uh, is more complex than student and staff. I think some people are still using student, staff, and faculty. So three. So all but three of these have to be manually applied to users, and they're probably not really in use. Um, so if you look and you're like, wow, we created a lot of user groups, and like Trio College Bound, they're coming in as a student. The agriculture program coming in as student. Job Corps coming in as student. Um, other college, maybe you want to keep that one if you get a lot of walk-in traffic from another CTC, but in all likelihood, you're going to treat those folks like community member anyway, so you probably don't need it. Um, Big Bend has an agreement with Central, so they did create a Central account, although I'm not even sure there are any active users in it. And then another one that was I see a lot is former or emeritus faculty and staff. And unless they have different permissions than current faculty or staff or community members, there's no reason to have uh, this group. CTC Link is not going to automatically move them into this group. Um, so limits as in patron limits. Yes, there are those patron limits. Also just how policies are applied as far as the like, do you allow current faculty to check out for a semester, but students are 28 days and community and former faculty are 14 days. Um, so limits more in the general sense of configurations as opposed to the Alma official term patron limits. Um, Another hanger on in a lot of environments is this delete user group. Uh, in the older systems, it was very common practice to move user records that you were planning on purging into a delete user group and then run the purge job. Uh, that is a redundancy that's unnecessary. If you have configured your purge dates and your expiration dates uh, appropriately and they're coming in the way you want them to, and you want to run a purge job to purge anyone whose purge date is more than 6 months old, um, you can set that to run on whichever user group you want to run it on, and it will accurately only purge those people and none of those people who have active loans or fines and fees. So you're not gonna accidentally get rid of someone with a record that you need to keep. It's just gonna be folks with nothing on there that are expired. So this delete group, um, generally speaking, that process can be updated and you don't need it anymore. Otherwise, people just kind of end up sitting in that delete group for a while, and clogging up the system. Um, so that's uh that's all of these areas. The order for the user groups in this table doesn't matter, and I think like maybe it sets the order if you're creating a record, but I suspect it just does it alphabetically when you're creating a new user. I mean, with Alma, it's 50-50 on whether table order makes a difference or if they put it alphabetically. So, um, yeah, so the next tool I do want to kind of highlight in case it's new to you, as it was to me a year and a half ago, is the fulfillment configuration utility. So this is just a wizard of a tool. So we have our test student account and our item by barcode. So I'm like, okay, this, laptop, how long is it going to check out? It tells me it's in general. The rule is end of term. The term of use is end of term. And currently, the due date would be this if it was checked out today. So this is a good way to just do a spot check through your system if you're like, what's going on? Um, you can see the entire list of policies that makes up the term of use here. So you can see, oh, it's renewable. Well, gosh darn it, we don't want our laptops to be renewable. So we need to take a look at that. Or, like, uh, recall is not possible. Well, we do want recall because what if there is, some kind of IT issue? Who knows? Anyway, you can also check the request policies. So this laptop is requestable. That might not be how we want this to work. Granted, I know laptops aren't actually discoverable in Primo, so that's, not likely to happen, but this is probably because the fulfillment unit rule does not uh, exclude laptops. It's just like, oh, well, let's look what it is. It's just if the student is in the student group. That's all it is. So that's probably because this fulfillment unit doesn't have a ton of request rules on here. The booking rule is going to be the default booking rule, and Big Ben doesn't use bookings, so default is the item is not bookable. Great, fine. And then the overdue and lost loan profile. So this is a great one if you're making updates to um, your notifications. And so you can see that we've got community and student 7-day, 14-day, and going to loss at 28 days. And it's like, yay. Um, if you delete a user group, does it affect analytics or history? So I if you delete a user group and there are active users in it, those users will now not have a user group. So that's an issue. If you delete a user group with no active users in it, it might, well, if there's no active users in it, the only thing that would be affected was if you had an expired user that was still in that group. Um, but then what would happen is you would just not see, they wouldn't have a user group anymore. And but if you were looking at historical circulation data, it will still return the old user group names. So if you decide to consolidate down to 3 user groups, for example, and then you're running your stats on historical checkout numbers from quarter to quarter, you would see the old user groups and numbers, and then it would slowly kind of move over to the new user group and numbers. I'm trying to think of other applications where user group history would come into play. But the next step in this is to see what's going on analytically. So I had some of these, but I polished them up, gave them distinctive names with no capitals except TOUs for some reason. Um, and I put them all in one folder. So if we go into analytics, access analytics, and catalog, and then we're going to go to shared folders, community, reports, consortia, WACTCLC, and fulfillment. We've got some of these, and I do have this item counts by library location item policy, but I made this cleaner version. So we have locations and item policies, and I didn't put any filters on these that should stop them working at your library. So they should work. So here we have, I did put a filter on by library name. So here are all of the locations in the library, and here are all the item policies that are in use in that location, all of the material types, because you can also set fulfillment unit rule parameters based on material type, and then the number of items with that rule. So the 24-hour reference desk has 5 total items in it. So my recommendation to Amanda and Teresa, because she's the cataloger, is probably to figure out what the heck those 6 things are and move them somewhere else and get rid of 24-hour ref. Because as we saw in the fulfillment unit rules, that, or the TOUs, that one is like not got much going on anyway. 7-day ref, the 0 counts are going to be because there were laptops that were deleted. So that's where you see that history come in. So right now on the 7-day ref desk, there's a 7-day equipment laptop, and there are 3 of them. So again, my recommendation to Amanda is going to be, what are those 3 laptops that only check out for a week, and why? And do you want to put those somewhere else? Because they've got an item policy that's 7-day equipment. So you can change their location to ref desk, have a fulfillment unit rule under that fulfillment unit that says if item policy is 7-day equipment, it checks out for 7 days. You don't need to have a location just for these 3 things, because these 3 things are an extreme exception to the general policy. And that's the purpose of an item policy, is that extreme exception. Like maybe these are Macs with Adobe for an art program and they only check out to faculty. So there's an exception. I really love how the 8-hour ref desk location has item policies for 12-hour, 24-hour, end of quarter. Like, again, this doesn't need to be a location, probably. These probably need to be moved elsewhere. So as you dig into this, what you're going to find is what we're finding right here. You're going to find cataloging processes that created mismatches between location, policy, and fulfillment unit. You're going to find old stuff that's not used. But hopefully you also find places where things are primarily going the way they're supposed to go. So we have in the CD collection location mostly CD item policy and mostly sound recording material type. Now, my recommendation would be to drop all of these item policies and just use the location to set whatever term of use. Because if something's in the CD collection, whether it has a book and a CD or it's just a CD or if it's apparently a vid disc, um, all of these CDs, whether it's oversized or not, probably check out for the same amount of time. So all of these item policies are absolutely redundant and just create issues where like this book one might trigger on something else, or this vid disk might not trigger on anything because someone built the fulfillment unit rule to catch on CD and CD-ROM, but not vid disk because there's 33 different item policies and they don't need to be used. Disability support services, like this is looking pretty good. Like they've got everything on an end of quarter equipment item record. Okay, how can we get the barcode to the item that we want to change? So if you're looking at this report and you're saying, whew, I got some doozies that need some cleanup, I would recommend, we'll go back to catalog. Click on this, get it highlighted, hit copy, move it into your local shared folders. I'll move this
Hey,
one into
Carly,
mine.
can
Hmm.
you go slower on this part? Like I've been clicking around and I want to snag this one, so I'm gonna follow you.
Okay, so we clicked on it, we did the copy. I then came into the institution shared folder. And so if you have like an Abby folder or a reports folder or collections folder, um, you click on the folder. Once it's open, all you have to do to paste it is click this paste clipboard icon up at the top. And ooh, it went fast. Sometimes that takes quite a while. So it shows up at the end of the list, not in alphabetical order until you like come back into it another time. Now it's in your local environment. And if you want to make some changes like getting the barcode for a location that you're like, what are these three things? You're going to edit the report instead of opening, and then go to criteria. And I would, so we'll do barcode. So we'll add barcode. And then we'll go to results. And this is going to be stupidly long and crazy and take a second. But then we're going to edit here in this table, the little pencil. And now, in addition to library name, I'm going to put location name up in this table prompt because that's going to limit what's visible when you're looking at results. So now we're like, okay, 24-hour ref desk, here are the barcodes. Let's see what's going on. So we've got a video of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So that, I mean, material type should have been DVD. That's a cataloging thing. Uh, for some reason, this is at 24-hour checkout instead of reserves, which in practice, it's probably just at reserves. Um, but yeah, so you can, then you can take a look at other ones and be like, what's at Bindery? Something with no barcode. Uh, Bindery was a location that again was defaulted on migration because technical services in large institutions is not all done at one desk right behind circulation by the same person. Children's literature reference. No, that one was okay. Let's look at that 7-day ref desk. So this one, we've got this one 12-hour equipment. So you could look at this and be like, what's going on here? Hmm. And oh, items in repository, 0 because it's been deleted. Um, so if you want to get rid of these zeros, you can also add a life cycle filter on the main report. And physical item details, life cycle, and then we're just gonna say nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Life cycle filter is equal to active. And now when we go to results, we shouldn't get those zeros. We should just get the ones that are ones. Yep. And that is the difference between number of items in repository and life cycle. Because if it ever was in the repository, it will register as 0 instead of 1. So now we have 3 laptops that are on a 7-day equipment. And it's just a miscellaneous laptop with no information except its model number. Um, so if you ever want help kind of tweaking any of these reports, I'll show you the next two as well. Let me know. I'm happy to come in with you and, get what you need into it and create a visualization that's useful for you. Okay, let's go back to, I'll go ahead and save this. Let's go back to my fulfillment um, folder, and we'll take a look at the other 2 analytics reports that I created very quickly because we are running out of time, as suspected, because I got a real bee in my bonnet about fulfillment clarity. And
So I know you've got another one of fulfillment scheduled for next week. If we kind of reach the limit, would you consider a continuation or
oh yeah, we'll
okay.
just pick up where we left off. Rules, policies, and TOUs. This is an interesting one. It's actually 3 different that I created, and this is built in the relatively new configuration analytics area. And this shows you what rules are attached to what term of use. So, and I limit it to those that were actually active because you can't have inactive ones. This one has like the policy, what it's called, what the description is. Um, so that when you're kind of looking at things and you're like, oh, these are missing a description, I should add that in. Um, and then this is a table of what TOU is applied to what fulfillment unit rule. So you can see like, okay, 1 day, we've got all these 1-day ones that are applied to all of these. But if, 1-day community equipment and short loan are the exact same ones, then these fulfillment unit rules could just connect to the same TOU. They don't have to have 5 different ones. So this one is a little crazy, and it's not immediately like, there's a way I need to clean up. But it can be helpful as kind of a place to start, especially in being like, we don't have descriptions. Um, The last one I want to show you real quick. All right. See you later, Will, is the user group one. Um, and this is just the number of users in each user group that are active versus inactive. So Big Bend does not have 27,000 students. So they've got an expiration date issue. Um, but like there's there are some kids in this one. They do have community users, but like the API user group is irrelevant. Don't worry about that one. But other college, like could those just be in community? Staff, why? Um, unless your library staff, if that is a library staff thing, then so anyway, those were the analytics reports that I kind of threw together. A couple, I think we've kind of covered this a little bit. I've said, like, are there zero counts? Is there redundancy? Um, the big thing that I would encourage you to talk to your part-time staff, your student staff, your frontline staff about is what are their pain points? Like where do issues come up? Um, and if you get those barcodes, you can always run them through fulfillment utility configuration utility and figure out what's going on. So these are my soapbox items. We will start with that next week. Um, with the link to this document here, you can also check out this eLuna Learns presentation. eLuna Learns from 2024 and 2025 are completely free for all of our staff and colleges as part of our consortial membership. So when you register to watch, just put down your college or put down Whack to Click. They'll figure it out. And their example from running a cleanup is half the number of fulfillment units, a fifth or less of terms of use. They did keep quite a few of their user groups, far fewer rule sets, many fewer material types, and exponential number of item policy fields being fewer being used. So they were applying item policies very broadly, realized there was no need for that, and now use it limitedly. So you can watch that recording anytime. Next week, we will start with these thoughts. And then if anyone wants to be a guinea pig, let me know and we'll have a little meeting prior to kind of set you up to be the example in our next workshop. So I hope everyone learned a little bit something and maybe has something to take into next week. And please reach out if you have any questions before then. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all again.